The world is a vampire sent to drain secret destroyers hold you up to the flames. And what do I get for my pain?
Here's your license registration and your citation. You have 15 days to respond to the citation from the date of issuance. You can pay it, contest it, or mitigate it.
What was the reason for you pulling me over?
I already told you, sir. You have a good night.
No,
okay?
what was the reason?
I already told you.
Understand victimless crimes? Do something real. You're a real hero. You solved the crime of the century, you fucking cocksucker.
The American police state, brought to you by Questionable Authority. Your freedom is an illusion.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and thanks for joining me for another video. Today's video comes from the YouTube channel Extortion Everywhere. Now this is my friend John. I've highlighted his channel in the past. If you're not subscribed to him already, I'll throw a link to it and all the other sources I use in this video in the description below. Definitely go check out his channel, and if you like his content, sub him and let him know that QA sent you. Moving on to what this video is about now. John from Extortion Everywhere was charged, I believe it was back in April, with having expired tabs on his car. He was pulled over by a deputy for the Snohomish County Sheriff's Department in Snohomish County, Washington, who was driving an unmarked vehicle. RCW 46.08.65 defines what the markings are supposed to be like on state-owned vehicles or vehicles owned by any governing agency within the state of Washington, so like municipalities and counties as well. And in there, it establishes what the marking regulations are, how they have to be marked, and then it also establishes what the exemptions to those marking requirements are. So John, since he was pulled over by an unmarked car, he feels like this should be thrown out. He feels like it was an unlawful stop. So I want to show you the case because he went in and argued it himself without using a lawyer. And I want to show that to you because it's something we all need to start doing. Instead of hiring lawyers, we need to, especially for simple things like this, we just need to go in there and handle it ourselves. A lawyer or somebody that's part of the bar association is not going to be helping you with a case like this. They're going to be helping their reputation with the judge and the prosecuting attorney. That's it, plain and simple. So don't use a lawyer for things like this. Yes, it can be intimidating, and John, I believe this was his first time doing this. He seemed a little bit intimidated. I know he'd done quite a bit of research on the RCW before he went in there, but that's just the first thing I'm going to say about this. If you choose to do this, and I encourage you to, you really need to know the law inside and out that you're arguing, so you know how to properly argue your argument. And I think John did a good job of that. I think just his nerves caught up to him when he got in there, and he didn't do as effective job as communicating that as he had hoped. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and start the video here. I'm going to show just a quick clip, and then I'm going to move ahead a little bit into a second clip where he actually gets into a little bit of why he's fighting the charge before I start breaking things down a little bit.
The next matter is going to be the Strand matter 1-801-32769.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Strand, good afternoon. You're here accused of expired vehicle registration, $231 from February 11th. Have you discussed your case with the prosecutor?
Briefly.
Okay. And do you wish to go forward with a contested hearing today, or did you have some other option that you wanted to take?
No, I want to contest it.
And are there any preliminary motions?
That the ticket be thrown out, dismissed.
On what legal grounds?
RCW 46.08.65, driving an unmarked vehicle. It was an unlawful stop. If you'd like, Your Honor, I can read the law to you.
I need you to give me that citation one more time. 46?
46.08.065.
Okay, so he's just bringing up why he's fighting the case there, why he's fighting the charge there. I'm just going to skip forward to now. He's going to get into a little bit more detail.
This section shall not apply to vehicles of the Sheriff Office, local police department, any vehicle other by local police officers under public authority for special, undercover, or confidential investigation purposes. This subsection may not apply.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the RCW itself, 46.0865. So what John was just reading there is specifically why he thinks this case should be thrown out and why it was an unlawful stop. Right here in the first section of the RCW, it says, this section shall not apply to vehicles of a sheriff's office, a local police department, or any vehicles used by local peace officers under public authority for special undercover or confidential investigative purposes. So what that does is it creates a list of 3 different agencies that are not state agencies, but are below the state, like municipalities. That's what it says here. Sheriff's office, local police department. So we're talking about county governments and police departments. So there's one other law enforcement kind of entity that is allowed under the state of Washington, which would be a peace officer under public authority. So what it's doing is creating a list of all the different law enforcement entities that are allowed in the state of Washington outside of the state itself, like the Washington State Patrol, the law enforcement of the Fish and Wildlife Department in Washington. Those are controlled by the state. So what it's saying here is there's 3 other entities that can do law enforcement inside the state of Washington. So it's giving a list of them: the sheriff's office, the local police department, and any vehicles used by local peace officers under public authority. Then it's saying that they can only use those for special undercover or confidential investigative purposes, which is consistent with what it says throughout the entire RCW when regarding law enforcement. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. That's what he said here. That's why he thinks it's unlawful. I want to say one more thing real quick. This is where I think John kind of messed up on his argument. RCW 46.0865, right here in the title. Publicly owned vehicles to be marked, exceptions. It never talks about in this RCW that they can't pull you over if they're in an unmarked vehicle, that they can't do any of that kind of stuff. Not one place in here does it say a law enforcement agent cannot pull you over if they are in an unmarked vehicle. All it says is what they can use unmarked vehicles for, what the exceptions to the markings are. It doesn't say that a detective or someone doing undercover work, a detective would be a special investigative purpose, driving a car. It doesn't say that a detective can't pull you over if they're in their car and they see you speeding by or something like that and breaking one of the statutes or policies of the state. It doesn't say they can't pull you over. So that's a very important distinction there. And in my opinion, I think John should argue this from a different angle than he did, and I think he might have won it. We'll just move on. I want to play a little bit more here. This is actually a long stint. I might stop it a couple of times, but I'm really going to try to just let it go, and I'll make my comments at the end.
The vehicle that he was driving was not marked, and in the state of Washington, you can only use these vehicles for special investigative uses, which is traffic control, DUI, task force, undercover investigations. I'm sorry?
Why is this not traffic control?
The law specifically says that it is not to be used for traffic control. As we go down.
But you're not pulled over for any kind of moving violation.
So the judge is telling him he got pulled over for a moving violation. John is trying to explain, he kind of, this is where I think his nerves got to him. He said that they can only be used for traffic control, which is incorrect. Obviously, it says they can be used for special investigative services. But what he should have known is he should have really known the definition of traffic control so he could inform the judge and the prosecutor of that, because they're assuming traffic control means a patrol officer out there controlling traffic somehow, writing tickets to people. That's not the case. You can even look it up in the Washington Administrative Code. They removed traffic control vehicle after 2015 when there became a lot of controversy because of a video Gavin Syme did on this subject. But there are still definitions for traffic control device and things like that. And what those are signs, traffic lights. They guide and control the flow of traffic. They do not, a traffic light and a sign cannot write a ticket for someone who is speeding. Now they have little cameras they put up and stuff like that, but that's not a traffic control device. That's just a camera, and there's actually, those are unlawful as well, but there's an officer most likely in another state writing the ticket. So there's an actual officer writing the ticket there, but he didn't observe it. He wasn't a witness. Anyways, I'm going to get off that. I don't want to get out all these little rabbit holes. So anyways, my point is, if he would have been informed a little bit better, or informed the judge, I should say, a little bit better about traffic control, saying, well, a traffic control device, a traffic control car has yellow lights, it directs traffic where to go, it might be closing down a lane on a freeway, something like that. It doesn't write tickets. Traffic enforcement is where tickets are issued, and that is from police officers. Lots of people can do traffic control. Only police officers can do traffic enforcement, or enforcement of the rules of the road. So that's an important distinction there.
Traffic control.
Traffic enforcement, I'm sorry. Is it?
So you pulled you over for expired vehicle license.
Correct. And in the state of Washington, you cannot use an unmarked vehicle for traffic enforcement, only for traffic control.
He wasn't saying, he wasn't pulling you over for a traffic moving violation, right? So is there a distinction there? I'm asking.
Well, the ticket said moving violation.
Well, it's not a moving violation.
It did say on the ticket moving violation.
It's not a moving
Okay.
violation. So,
Well,
okay, let me hear from the prosecutor. So in essence, I would.
And he should have had the ticket, a copy of it, to bring in so he could show him, oh, it says moving violation right here. That would have been his evidence. Now it's just his word against the judge's.
Couch your argument is you're saying that the officer lacked the authority to stop you because the officer was not in a marked control vehicle.
correct.
The summary of your argument. Let me hear from the prosecutor.
Yes, Your Honor, this is section 3 of the statute, specifically X officers who are doing traffic control, if it's been designated by the chief of the Washington State Patrol. Subsection 2 is the one that states what exactly needs to be on the vehicle. So in subsection 3, when it exempts officers who have been given permission by the chief of the Washington State Patrol, makes it so that those vehicles don't need to have that on their vehicle. So it's the same position that an undercover officer giving a ticket is not an issue according to this statute.
So, first of all, she completely read the wrong subsection. This is what I'm saying. If you guys have the information on this, know it, and backwards and forwards, because this judge nor the prosecutor knows anything about this, because she just half read what I'm going to read to you right here. Subsection 3. Subsection 2 of this section, which is right up above here, where it explains what the markings, as she just said, shall not apply to vehicles used by the Washington State Patrol for, oh, we've heard this before, general undercover or confidential investigative purposes. Period. Traffic control vehicles of the Washington State Patrol may be exempted from the requirements of the subsection 2 of this section at the discretion of the chief of the Washington State Patrol. So she just basically said at the end there, if you couldn't hear, it's basically a non-issue because of what it says right here. Where was the guy, first of all, he wasn't even with the Washington State Patrol. He was with the Snohomish County Sheriff's Department, so this subsection doesn't even apply to him. That's how silly she is. But traffic control vehicles may be exempted. He's not a traffic control vehicle, and this is, like I said, what I was going back to before. If John would have explained to them and educated them on what traffic control versus traffic enforcement is, that argument would have been null and void right there. So I'm trying to keep that short, and we'll move along.
You're referencing 46080653. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor, my apologies for not listing the statute.
Traffic control vehicles of the Washington State Patrol may be exempted from the requirements of subsection 2 of this section at the discretion of the chief of the Washington State Patrol. So what's your response to that?
This was Snohomish County. Snohomish County doesn't have a pact with the city or the county for driving unmarked vehicles for traffic enforcement. Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
I'm sorry. I thought you were indicating that Snohomish County doesn't have an agreement with the city of Everett
To drive unmarked vehicles. It also says in here that they have to go to their governing parties to allow unmarked vehicles to use them for traffic enforcement.
So,
Like Spokane County has a pact with the county so that they can use their Spokane County vehicles unmarked legally. Snohomish County, as far as I know, doesn't have that.
Is Officer Jay Latimer a trooper?
Okay, so I'm gonna excuse me. I'm gonna stop this right there because I want to explain. This is very another kind of tricky part of this RCW. A lot of people let the legalese and the deputies and sheriffs and all these people who are supposed to be heroes protecting us lie, and they just believe them. So what he was referring to here is back, as I mentioned, back in 2015, there was a big controversy. I believe even before that, the controversy locally in Spokane here on this side of the state started in 2013 when a local pastor, and he owned a big greenhouse in the area, the Creech Greenhouse. Scott Creech, his name was. He was shot on his own private property by a deputy, a Spokane County Sheriff's deputy, in an unmarked patrol vehicle who was parked on his property. I won't get into the details of that. I've done some videos on that in the past, but that created a big controversy. And then in 2015, as it kind of escalated beyond there, Ozzie Knezovich, the sheriff of Spokane County at the time, who still is the sheriff, what he did is he went to the Spokane County Board of Commissioners and asked them special permission to kind of use the unmarked vehicles for however he wanted. And now I understand it. Actually, I didn't, even myself, I've read this RCW so many times, I didn't understand what Ozzie did, and now he pulled the wool over everyone's eyes again. So basically what he said then is, well, all I'm doing is I just want to clarify what we can use unmarked vehicles for. So I'm basically just restating what the state says. Well, now I know that's the only reason he did that is because that's all he can do. That's literally what it says right here. So what Ozzie did was he basically convinced the people, oh no, I'm only following what the RCW says, just like I said up there, where basically what law enforcement says is this section shall not apply to vehicles of a sheriff's office, local police department, or any vehicles used by local peace officers under the public authority. So what they say there, people like Ozzie, I'll get back to the right section there, is he says that says the section shall not apply to vehicles of a sheriff's office. So right there, this section does not apply to any vehicles of a sheriff's office. It doesn't apply to any local police departments, but it does apply to vehicles used by local peace officers under public authority who only get to use unmarked cars for special undercover or confidential investigative purposes. That's how Ozzie and people like him, other law enforcement chiefs and people like that, public information officers, have been trained to pull the wool over our eyes, to lie to us as the people who pay their salaries, and convince us that they're following the law. First of all, that means you're disregarding grammar. I guess none of these people care about grammar. They can just write words and commas and whatever, and it just means whatever they say instead of what it actually means because of our common understanding of language. But yeah, it's just creating a list of 3 different entities and then saying they can only use them for these 3 things. It's very simple. It's not complicated. But we're all departmentalized legal idiots, and so when we go to a police officer and say, hey, wait, Mr. Deputy, it says you can't use this unmarked vehicle, and they say, oh, no, look, remember, I'm the hero. I can. It says right here I can. Then we go, oh, okay. Here, take my money and take me to a cage. We got to stop doing that. We got to hold these people feet to the fire. If they're breaking laws, we need to hold them accountable. And that's why I'm doing this video. So anyways, going back to that, what it says here, in the bottom of the first section regarding what Ozzie Knezovich in Spokane County did and what John from Extortion Everywhere was explaining to the judge, it says, the appropriate governing body may provide by rule or ordinance for marking of passenger motor vehicles as prescribed in subsection 2 of this section, or for the exceptions to the marking requirements for local governmental agencies for the same purposes and under the same circumstances as permitted for state agencies under subsection 3 of this section. So what it's saying is governing bodies, local governing agencies, can ask for additional exemptions than what are in this first section, which the only exemption it gives local police departments and sheriff's offices and local peace officers operating under public authority are for special undercover or confidential investigative purposes. It doesn't give them the traffic control vehicles like the state is allowed. So what this basically is saying is they can ask their governing body, the Board of Commissioners of Spokane County or whichever county the department is in, or city, whatever their governing body is, to approve further exemptions that are included in this in section 1 here. But it says they have to be under the same circumstances as permitted for state agencies under subsection 3. So here we go. Subsection 2 of this section shall not apply to any vehicles used by the Washington State Patrol for general, undercover, or confidential investigative purposes. Traffic control vehicles of the Washington State Patrol may be exempted from the requirements of subsection 2 of this section at the discretion of the Chief of the Washington State Patrol. I already read that part. I'm going to read here because this is a little bit important too, and this is another part. The whole departmentalized legal idiot thing comes in. The Department of Enterprise Services shall adopt general rules permitting other exceptions to the requirements of subsection 2 of this section for other vehicles used for law enforcement, confidential health work, or public assistance, fraud, or support investigative purposes, or vehicles leased, blah, 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 blah. So that's another thing where they go, oh, well, it says right here that they can just ask, the Department of Enterprise Services to just go ahead and okay them for exemptions. Well, again, it's specifically stating that of this section that they can, for other vehicles used for law enforcement. So what does that mean? We have to break that down, right? Can't be legalized departmental idiots anymore. We got to break this stuff down. What would that mean? Other vehicles. So we've already described certain vehicles up here. We've described ones being used for special undercover or confidential investigative purposes. So now right here it's saying other vehicles may be, let me get back to it here, used for law enforcement. So anything that hasn't been described here, if they write the let me get back to that, the Department of Enterprise Services, they can adopt general rules permitting other exceptions. So if there are, like for example, I'll throw a link to this video in the description. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife drives unmarked vehicles for their like sergeants and some of the upper echelon of their enforcement agents. And they have written the Department of Enterprise Services and asked them for a special exemption so that they could have their sergeants driving unmarked vehicles, because apparently they're not proud of their job. They don't want people to think they're law enforcement. Anyways, moving forward here, let's go ahead and finish up. I'm going to try not to stop at the rest of the time, and I'll just leave you with my final comments at the end.
Governor, and that's my apologies. I didn't realize to the officer. He's with a deputy with Snohomish County Sheriff's Department.
And so now that you know he's a deputy, what is your argument with respect to the defense's motion?
Yes, Your Honor, I think this is covered in section 1 of RCW 4608-605, which specifically states this does not apply to vehicles of a sheriff's office.
Okay, so again, right there, just point out, where did you go to school? You don't understand how commas and all that work? You don't understand sentence structure? Just point that out. Ask her, where did you go to school? Did you pass like English? Or what? Or are we speaking legalese? Because I need to speak English. I don't understand. I need an interpreter here if you guys are going to speak legalese. That's a different language than English. So things like that. These are statements you can make. But she's completely wrong. It doesn't say the section shall not apply to vehicles of a sheriff's office. You got to keep reading the sentence. You can't just take part of a sentence. You got to read the whole sentence. That's the whole point, right? Because the subject, all that, right? Remember when we went through grammar school, they're all tied in. Everything in a sentence is tied in together. You start a new sentence, now that's something different, right? I'm sorry that I have to go back to this grammar school stuff, but these are the people we're dealing with, that we give guns and badges and allegedly authority over our lives. And yet I'm the crazy one for not wanting them to rule over my life. It's insane.
So it says this section shall not apply to vehicles of a sheriff's office, local police department, or any vehicles used by local police officers under public authority for special undercover confidential investigative purposes. So I think his argument is that what's the state relying on to indicate that this is for being used for special undercover or confidential investigative purposes?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. I think whenever an officer or any law enforcement officer is in an undercover car, the purpose of being in an undercover car is to do law enforcement. That's in a conspicuous manner. That's going to be a confidential investigation. I think if they wanted to be in a vehicle that was fully marked, that would be used for potentially another purpose. So I think.
Oh my lord, I just gotta stop here. Why do we have these laws? Why do we write up an RCW like this? Why does it even exist? Because obviously cops can just do, hey man, if they're trying to do some law enforcement in an unmarked car, clearly there's a purpose for that. They want to be able to extort more money and do it without being seen. I mean, clearly, they don't care about public safety. They don't actually want someone to slow down by seeing a marked vehicle or stop or follow the rules of the road and actually be safe. No, they would rather allow them to keep speeding and then be able to pull them over, threaten violence, even create more of a safety hazard for everybody else on the road, because now they're engaging in a high-speed chase. They got to catch up to the person, all this stuff. So they can extort more money. That's pure and simple. I've done a video and I'll put a link to that one with the Liberty Lake Police Department. They have a ghost car that's almost completely unmarked. You can barely see the markings at all unless you're at the perfect angle. And they admitted on video how many more tickets they're able to write with that video. Yet all these statists and blue line backers just, oh, well, you must have gotten pulled over and you're angry about it. No, I believe in freedom and I don't believe in being oppressed by these jackholes. How about that?
Just in and of itself, using an undercover vehicle shows that there is a undercover or confidential investigation is the purpose of why they're doing that.
Mr. Strand.
So what she just said is, well, if they're in an unmarked car, I mean, clearly that's why they're doing it, is because they are a special investigation or undercover. Oh, yeah, because we just have to believe them. They would never do anything wrong, right? We've never caught a government official or anybody claiming to have power over us lying to us. Never. They have perfect ethics.
The biggest problem with them driving unmarked vehicles is the law was put on the books to protect the people. The people are not being protected. Anybody can put a light kit on their car. Anybody can act as an officer. You can get all this stuff online. People have been raped. But the whole thing is to protect the public.
Response to her argument. Her argument basically is the nature of driving an unmarked vehicle is for undercover or confidential investigative purposes. And so,
what was the confidential undercover pulling me over?
So there you go. He kind of got, I think this is maybe where John's nerves got to him a little bit. Right there, the judge just asked him, what is your argument to her response that he was using this for special undercover or whatever? So that's, like I said, if he was using it as a special investigative, if that's what he was assigned to that night as his job, like when you go to work, you're assigned a job, right? Police are no different. They're assigned special investigative work. They're assigned patrol. They're, traffic and patrol, stuff like that. They're assigned different duties. So if they aren't assigned to be doing special investigative work or undercover work, and he was driving that vehicle, then yes, it was unlawful for him to be driving that vehicle at the time, and this should be thrown out if that was the case. Now, if maybe he is a detective, and he just happened to be on his way home from a special investigation, and he saw extortion everywhere, or John here with his expired tabs, okay. Now, according to the laws in the state of Washington, their policies, now I'm not saying this is okay or ethical, but I'm just saying, according to their policies that they're trying to enforce, it's okay for him to pull John over under those circumstances, even with an unmarked car. Like I said, it doesn't say they can't perform enforcement with unmarked cars. It just says they can only use them for these things specifically in their general duties. So that's an important distinction. If John would have gone on and said, well, I contacted the sheriff's department and I got some public records so I could see what kind of work he was assigned to be doing that night. And if he was just out there as a patrol officer that night, patrolling traffic, then absolutely this should be thrown out, because I don't see anywhere in any of these exceptions here does it say for traffic enforcement or patrol or anything, only control, which that means, like I said, maybe there was an event and they had to hire a deputy to stand out on the road and, okay, you got to go this way, you got to go, we're closing this lane, you got to go over there, or maybe that's why he was out there. I don't know, maybe they hired him for that. But if they hired him for that, then that's traffic control. That's not traffic enforcement. He shouldn't be out there enforcing anything. He should just be out there telling people where to go. So that's my point, I guess. I'll let it go again. I just wanted to bring that up, that right there, I think John had an opportunity to turn this case for his side if he just would have been a little bit more informed as far as how to argue that, not just saying, well, it's public safety, he shouldn't have been driving this. He could have been driving it, and it could have been a completely lawful stop if he was assigned for the correct things while he was working that night. Anyways, hope you guys get my point there. I'm going to let the rest of the video, a little bit more of the video play so you can hear a little bit more, and then I'll make my final comment.
Well, I don't know, because you did subpoena the officer
Well, I thought that when I did contest the hearing that he was required to show up. I wasn't aware of that, so.
The court was required that you subpoena the officer if you want to be present. So we're somewhat at a disadvantage in that we're all speculating as to what he may have been doing. Okay. It's hard for me to find one way or the other if he's...
And the judge just said it. We're all speculating as to what he was doing, so he should have had him in there.
Because he's in an unmarked vehicle. That's pretty logical. logical argument. But I mean, what's your response to it?
My response to it is that the law says that they can use them for, what I look at undercover and confidential is like sting operations or, you know,
that's what they are.
surveillance or stuff like that. Not going around pulling people over for traffic
It's very
infractions.
common, particularly for the Washington State Patrol, to have unarmed vehicles patrol traffic enforcement.
Yeah, and I've seen that.
And it's unlawful, as you just
actually
saw,
on the
Judge.
WSB page, I wish I could have brought this article, but it does, there's an article on there that says what they're allowed to use their unmarked vehicles for, and the majority of it is for aggressive driving behaviors, and they said that that's what they're using them for. And it specifically tackles the 46.08.65 law. So the transparency is, I'll be honest with you, when he was pulling me over, I went 3 blocks, I had no idea I was being pulled over. If you see this vehicle, it does not look like a police vehicle.
Well, that's kind of the point.
Yeah, but the LED lights were in the mirrors are so small, you can't see it. I went to where I was going, and he was behind me. I was like, where are you going? So I mean, this vehicle, it's just, can I submit these to you, sir? Okay.
What are they?
Just pictures of this vehicle.
Right, the photographs handed forward by the defendant are labeled as plaintiff's exhibit. Plaintiff's exhibit A. This will go just for your benefit. There are 4 photographs. It looks like probably an F-150 silver truck. It's very civilian in nature. So, you see this or not?
I can see that.
Right, any further argument on this legal issue, sir?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Bodie, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
So again, the court's at somewhat of a disadvantage in that I don't particularly know about the officer being present. So there was no written motion filed, so the prosecutor didn't know that this would be an issue to present, otherwise she may have subpoenaed the officer. I don't find a legal basis to find that the officer lacked the authority to pull her vehicle over due to the type of vehicle he was driving in. I do find that the nature of the law enforcement officer driving this sort of vehicle would indicate that he qualifies as a confidential investigation, and that he had the legal authority to pull your vehicle over without further information about the nature of his duties at that particular time. So I'm going to deny your motion to suppress and dismiss as a result of the lack of authority to pull your vehicle over. Do you have any other preliminary motions already?
No, just that I want to appeal it.
That's fine, you have the right to appeal. And as far, I haven't come against you yet though, so.
Let's get your gun on, so it's all right.
So on the merits of whether you were driving a vehicle with expired vehicle registration, do you wish to give testimony with respect to that?
No.
So I'll hear, or I'll read the officer's report to you as it was submitted to me, that you've seen it.
No, I have not.
So the judge just asked him, do you wish to contest that you were driving a vehicle that wasn't current on its registration? Yeah, well, why? Why am I required? What's the, like, I'm just a free man here, just trying to do my daily life. I'm not hurting anyone and all that. Why do I have to ask permission to live my life? Like, why? Just ask the judge. It's just curious. I mean, I thought it was a free country. Who am I hurting by just getting in my car and going down to the grocery store to get some food or going to work or whatever? Not hurting anyone.
It's only fair for you to know what evidence I'm considering against you. And so under the court rules, just so you know, when the officer is not subpoenaed, then the officer's report generally is admissible for the court to consider in the hearing under infraction. So the report submitted in your case reads as follows. On the date, time, and location listed on the above notice of infraction, I had a clear and unobstructed view of the defendant driving a vehicle in Snohomish County. I stopped them for displaying expired tabs. I observed the tabs and fixed.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop it right there. He found him guilty. He's just kind of reviewing it a little bit. I'm just gonna stop the video. It's gone on long enough. But I do, just like I said, I want to give you guys a final thought, something to think about. Just kind of roll over inside of your head until you see my next video, right? Or until you see one of these unmarked cars. If you're in the state of Washington or anywhere, it doesn't even matter if you're in the state of Washington or not. These people should all be driving marked cars, specifically if they're doing traffic enforcement or patrolling activities. So my final thought, and I guess question after this video is, do you think it's okay for the people that are out there charged with our own public safety to create a public safety hazard in their pursuit of providing safety to the public? Until next time, you guys have an excellent rest of your day. Thank you for the support, and always live free.
Thank you for supporting my work. Independent thought and journalism are under attack. If you want to fight censorship and promote independent thinking and freedom, we need your support. It's not just me. all truth-minded content creators are getting pushed off of the most popular and censorship-loving social media platforms. You can support me by making a donation of cryptocurrency. I have multiple wallets listed in the description of every video. If you still love your international banksters' fiat currency, I have links to PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App listed as well. If you're unable to donate in that fashion, consider signing up for LBRY, 3Speak, Hive, Steemit, DTube, or Minds using the links below, and earn some crypto for yourself and me by using my affiliate links. Then, you and I can both be earning decentralized cryptocurrency for you simply watching and interacting with my content.